This is one of a series of Good Answers presentations, offering evidence to answer skeptical challenges to the Bible's accuracy. This one treats a story from the time of the Judges that critics have deemed either fictional or impractical, or both. Please join me as we look back at one of the Bible's more unsavory characters. We begin, though, with his father, one of the Bible's heroes. Gideon was the man God chose to deliver the Hebrews from the Midianites, using only the 300 men whom God allowed to follow him. He was offered kingship in gratitude for this, but indignantly refused. He did, however, have multiple wives, and from these 72 sons. One of them was named Abimelech. Scripture tells us this: Abimelech, son of Jerubbaal, went to his mother's brothers in Shechem and said to them, "Which is better for you, to have all 70 of Jerubbaal's sons rule over you, or just one man? Remember, I am your flesh and blood." Multiple wives made, of course, for multiple mothers, and Abimelech's mother had brothers of her own. Apparently there were enough of these uncles to provide the support Abimelech wanted. Gideon's nickname was Jerubbaal, from the time he had torn down an altar of Baal, and then suggested to the outraged Baal worshippers, "Let Baal defend himself, if he can." And so Gideon was Jerubbaal, let Baal fight for himself. But back to Abimelech. They gave him 70 shekels of silver from the temple of Baal-Berith, and Abimelech used it to hire reckless scoundrels who became his followers. He went to his father's home in Ophrah, and on one stone murdered his 70 brothers, the sons of Jerubbaal. Then all the citizens of Shechem and Beth Millo gathered beside the great tree at the pillar in Shechem to crown Abimelech king. Murder, even mass murder, was all too common in this period, to be followed by either revenge or acceptance, as we can see from the reaction here. All of his potential rivals are dead, so let's make him king. And why not? The name Abimelech means son of a king. Well, eager to extend his petty kingdom, Abimelech attacks neighboring towns. Then Abimelech went to Thebez. Within the city was a strong tower, and all the people of the city fled to it, all the men and women, and shut themselves in. And they went to the roof of the tower. And Abimelech came to the tower and fought against it, and drew near to the door of the tower to burn it with fire. A somewhat reckless move for the commander to make, and he shortly pays for it, and provides the incident that is our subject today. And a certain woman threw an upper millstone upon Abimelech's head and crushed his skull. Then he called hastily to the young man, his armor-bearer, and said to him, "Draw your sword and kill me, lest men say of me, 'A woman has killed him.'" There we have it. A woman throws an upper millstone down, and Abimelech becomes history. But is this event history? Some will say not. It's legend, all about poetic justice. You know poetic justice, of course. Why, Warner Brothers had an extended series of cartoons, every one of which had that theme. Remember Wile E. Coyote and the Roadrunner? He kept after that bird with plots like this. Now, Gerald Jansen is one who sees that theme here. One who would rule Shechem single-handedly as its head, and who to that end killed 70 brothers on a single stone, in the end is killed by a single woman who drops a millstone upon his head. Well, it certainly can be read that way if you choose. And even if you don't, there are other problems with the story. In her book, Warrior, Dancer, Seductress, Queen, obviously highlighting the key roles women have played in history and legend, she finds this one unlikely. Quote, "The notion that a millstone is even present at the top of the tower is at least a highly unrealistic detail." Now, Abimelech comes from the age of Israel's judges, the 1200s or so, to about 1050 BC. We need to know how grain was milled in that period. So, was that upper millstone like this one, which would be provided with a mule to turn it? Nope, wrong period. That's from the Hellenistic age. But here's another type. Looks different, but its function is basically the same. Pour grain in the top, turn the upper stone, and the cone-shaped lower stone will do the rest. No, not this type either. It was also used only from about 300 BC on. But here's yet another grinding tool. Smith's Dictionary of the Bible tells us how it works. These consist of 2 circular stones, each about 18 inches or 2 feet in diameter, the lower of which is fixed and has its upper surface slightly convex, fitting into a corresponding concavity in the upper stone. In the latter is a hole through which the grain passes, immediately above a pivot or shaft, which arises from the center of the lower stone, and about which the upper stone is turned by means of an upright handle fixed near the edge. It is worked by women, sometimes singly and sometimes 2 together, who are usually seated on the bare ground. Alas, though, it belongs to the medieval period, even farther out of date for our story. There are further problems with these 3. What woman could even lift the upper of the millstones? And if she could, she'd never be able to throw it. And anyway, why would any rational community put one of these devices on an upper story? So our account seems fictional after all, I suppose. Fortunately, however, there is another method for grinding grain. In fact, the only one that was standard in the late 2nd millennium BC, the period of the Judges. Historians call it the saddle quern. Interestingly enough, archaeologists found one on a rooftop as they dug a site in 1994. The upper stone, as you see, rather resembles a loaf of French bread. It typically weighed about 4 to 9 pounds. No problem to lift that or throw it. In fact, some women tested the idea. They were among the team digging a site in Jordan, and apparently one evening they began discussing the Abimelech tale. The consensus was that it could easily have occurred, and they resolved to prove it. One wall of the site was preserved, so they took their position there, each one armed with a stone of about the right size. None of the men on the team volunteered to be Abimelech, So they located a watermelon, painted a face on it, and named it, what else? Abimelech. The first woman took her shot at an Abimelech that was rather far from the wall, probably farther than the warrior had been. The scene was immortalized by somebody with a camera, and their case was proved. A direct hit, and that was on the first try. So, could have happened. But could isn't did happen. Isn't there any confirmation apart from that passage in Judges? Yes, there is. Move down a couple of centuries to King David. He had, you recall, an affair with Bathsheba, wife of one of his best warriors, Uriah. And then the woman became pregnant. What to do? The pregnancy would surely become known, and the husband was away. It was campaigning season, and the army under Joab was besieging an enemy town. David called Uriah back, got a report on the campaign, and urged the man to stay a few days. But Uriah slept in the palace courtyard, and when questioned, he refused to go home while his comrades were at war. Even when David got him drunk, he would not comply. David had only one other ploy to use. He gave Uriah a sealed letter for Joab and sent him on his way. The letter instructed the commander to put Uriah in the most dangerous section and then withdraw from him. Those familiar with literary history know that message was a so-called Bellerophon letter. It has been a theme in legend and literature for centuries, since Homer's Iliad. There, King Proetus gives Bellerophon a sealed letter to take to Proetus' father-in-law with the message, "Kill the bearer of this message." And so it was that Uriah was killed. Joab sent back a messenger with careful instructions. If David charged Joab with foolishly bringing men within arrow shot of the defenders, the courier was to say that Uriah was killed. That would end the matter. What did Joab know David might say? It was this: "Who killed Abimelech, son of Jerubbesheth? Didn't a woman drop an upper millstone on him from the wall so that he died in Thebez?" So after a couple of centuries, the event was still part of military history. Joab knew it, and David knew it. So the artists have been wrong, and so have some of the Bible dictionaries. And the skeptics have been wrong, because it happened all right, like this. We're dealing with history here, and the Bible has it right, as always. If you have questions about this lecture, or any of the others in the Good Answers series, you may address them to me, Dr. Jerry C. 4 at yahoo.com.